delighted to introduce another guest on our podcast series, Leading Dialogues. And as the name suggests, we are here to have some interesting conversations with interesting people along the lines of understanding better communication with different people and so on. And you'll have noticed that previously we have interviewed some people from the Dublin City Interfaith Forum, and I'm delighted to introduce to you Adrian Cristea, who is the Executive Officer of the Dublin City Interfaith Forum. He has a background in sociology and social work with a master's degree from Trinity College in Dublin, but he's played a key role in establishing the first official interfaith forum in Ireland that was launched in January 2012. So Adrian works in interfaith integration, multicultural city context, and he has led the process of devising what we call the Dublin City Interfaith Charter, which I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about. But Adrian is passionately committed to the achievement of such things as racial justice, interfaith dialogue, human rights, interculturalism, interreligious dialogue and activity, and so on. And also the role of religion in integration and social cohesion. And I think, Adrian, it's fair to say that you are the driving force. I know you probably won't exactly like what I have to say, but the driving force behind the Dublin City Interfaith Forum. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, first of all, good morning, Swami, and good morning to all our listeners. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the Dublin City Interfaith Forum and the work we do. It's a privilege to be here. You mentioned we've been in existence for, well, since 2012. So we're approaching 15 years soon. You also mentioned the, I suppose, one of the cornerstones of a foundational, if you want, document that we launched almost 10 years ago in December.
Wow!
So we're approaching some significant milestones as an interfaith and interreligious organization operating in Ireland, not just in Dublin City.
So how did it all start, Adrian? What were the pioneering beginnings of this? And why also do you think it was important in the first place to have such a thing?
We have to backpedal a little bit in the past. I think the Dublin City Interfaith Forum developed in response to a very visible change in Dublin's, to start with, social and cultural landscape that we all noticed over the last 2-3 decades, I'd say. So as Ireland transitioned from a relatively homogeneous society in a religious context to a far more diverse community, and particularly in cities, in urban centers like Dublin, and there was this increasing awareness that the existing civic structures not always provided space for a good, meaningful interreligious engagement. So the forum, or DCIF, as we bandy around the acronym, emerged as a grassroots community-led response to this gap. it was initiated intentionally and developed as a top-down organization, as a collaborative platform where religious leaders, community representatives, civic actors could meet informally, build relationships, and begin to address concerns.
No, I mean, like an example of the cultural shift that has taken place is your own church, because not only do you are you the executive secretary, but you also represent the Romanian Orthodox Church. And how rapidly has that grown in Ireland, which is essentially, at least culturally, um, dominated, according to the census, probably 68% registered Roman Catholics. And in the face of that, how has your own church grown? I think your surname also means a follower of Christ. So,
Yes, yeah, depends how far back in history you go. My first name, Adrian, comes from, I looked it up, um, uh, one from the shores of the Adriatic Sea. So there you go. That was before, that was BC. Then AD, indeed, yeah, it comes from Christ. So a follower of Christ. Which brings us to the current, I suppose, profile and position of the Romanian Orthodox Church. Let's be clear, there are a number of ethnic Orthodox churches in Ireland. But I would say without hesitation that the Romanian Orthodox Church in Ireland is probably one of the, if not the largest Orthodox church on the island of Ireland, not just in the Republic. Current statistics indicate that in the region of 100,000 people subscribe to the Romanian Orthodox Church, which gives an indication of where it places itself.
that's a huge number of people in an island which has a relatively small population.
Well, I suppose it depends on how you look. You mentioned the percentages yourself. Last CSO statistics showed that just under 70% of the population are Catholic and subscribe themselves to a Catholic tradition. 10% don't subscribe to any religion. So the rest is divided between the rest of us, all other Christian groups and all other religions, as you know.
Well, something that we haven't really prepared for in this, but has occurred to me now, I suppose, and that is that generally, certainly in Europe and probably America too, let us say developed countries, there has been over a few years a decline in the interest in religion itself. And so that 10% that you mentioned is quite significant. And I suggest that if you ask that 10% what their worldview is, some might say, well, we don't believe in any religion at all, but we do think that there's some supreme being somewhere, Another percentage might say, well, we just have no interest at all. We're either agnostic or atheistic. And others say, well, we're just getting on with our life, And so, as far as we are concerned, of course, if we have a philosophy, as is in our case, which is very universal, then we can embrace any of those kinds of people, bar, I suppose, the last one, who are just not interested in anything. So there has been a tremendous shift. And so, I mean, how do you think there's been, I should mention, there's been a shift, of course, in Roman Catholic ritualism in a sense since the Vatican Council too, and their attitudes as well. And I suppose the thing that I've noticed is that the changes have been controversial. I have to introduce the word seem to be controversial, whereas the Eastern Orthodox churches have not changed so much and have remained stable. Is that accurate?
Yes, it would. I suppose there are some small changes, but overall, the Orthodox churches have kept the early church format in terms of ritual, in terms of observing the faith itself. There are changes in terms of I suppose administration, with more churches become independent churches rather than autocephalous, as that's a name. But apart from this, it remains very much the church of the early ages. I suppose in a way this is something that appeals to people. It's something that people value, and this is why you see if you visit Orthodox churches at praying or service times, you'll rarely find empty churches. They are thriving at the moment. I know for a fact that in Eastern Europe, after the fall of the communist regimes, there was a massive resurgence to the church.
And in fact, I think in Bucharest, there is a massive church being built. Is that right?
I think, yes, you are right. Indeed, yeah, is the I suppose the one of the largest Orthodox churches in the world. I think it was built over the last. I think it was inaugurated last summer, and it was built over the last 5-6 years as a tribute to the church for regaining its rightful place in society. So it's again, views are split in terms of whether it was needed or not at such scale. However, it's there now and it's in use and people enjoy it. So there you go.
I think it's controversial in the beginning, but after some time, it becomes part of the scenery, and people appreciate it more after the fact when it's in use, and generations look back and they don't understand maybe the finance that went into it, and maybe some of the hardships that went into it, and so on. Adrian, what do you think? What would be the most recent major accomplishments of the DCIF that you could highlight for us?
I suppose depends at what level you want to look at. If you want to talk about our work in Europe, there's a good few things we can talk about there as well. If you want to
Well,
talk
we could
about
start.
our
We could
walk,
yeah, we
uh,
we we could start off locally for sure, and also maybe you could make a comment because you're now touching on a pilgrimage, which I would like you to talk about, but also the fact that maybe Dublin City Interfaith Forum might give people the impression that it is confined to Dublin, and I'm not sure if that's true, but maybe you could say a few words about that. But over the last few years, I think probably there have been some significant developments in Ireland. We can move on then
Mhm.
to European relevance also. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the key elements I suppose one of the key priorities in the work of the Interfaith Forum um, was prioritizing dialogue, um, and also building trust among communities, um, uh, encouraging personal encounters rather than theological debates. So this 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 is how we started basically. But in time, this rather informal format became more structured and evolved into a civic platform that now includes a wide range of Christian denominations, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, and other belief communities. Um, so the key principle from the beginning was inclusivity, ensuring that a multitude of religious perspectives are part of the conversation. So you may remember you were part of it, all those early meetings, building workshops, structured, happening on a regular basis, that led to create this foundation of relational trust, with a significant civic reach, and then developing structured programs that connect interfaith dialogue to real real world social challenges. This is how Safe Haven anti-racism and religious hatred program emerged. This is how our work with schools happened, and other institutions, statutory or community groups. So
I mean, it sounds like the social and interreligious impact that the forum has made over the various years has been pretty impactful. Would you say that is true?
well, we'd like to think so. You mentioned earlier some of the challenges that we had right from the start in terms of securing continuous and adequate levels of funding. This is something this is still ongoing after all these years, nearly 15 years. We're still relying on only one staff, and supported by volunteers and interns. So the challenges are still there, but yet we've managed to, given the structure that we put in place, create an organization that lasted and delivered um, at all these levels, local, national, and further afield in Europe.
Now, it seems to me that from my experience of visitors coming to Ireland and so on, connected with the interfaith movement, that they view the Dublin City Interfaith Forum as a kind of unique project for many of the reasons that you've mentioned. We don't discuss theology, we don't get into that. We try and find the commonalities. We encourage dialogue, joint projects, the social and interreligious obvious impact that it has had, the fact that there is a hub by which people can refer to in order to get understanding or information about different issues and about different religious perspectives and even locations over the years. And so I suppose that leads to then the impact that we have made in other European centers and other European places.
Yes, I suppose while our day-to-day work is rooted around Dublin and Ireland and island of Ireland, more recently over the last decade or so, our work is increasingly connected to wider European interfaith and intercultural networks. We engage in, I suppose, knowledge and resource sharing platforms, collaborative forums. You may remember Cities, Faith and Community Forum that we were one of the founders a few years ago. And other organizations that use interreligious networks to bring together stakeholders working in like cities, organizations working on integration, social cohesion, and interreligious dialogue. We also organized ourselves and participated in various events like conferences and workshops focused on migration, integration, faith-based civic engagement. So all this, I guess, work engagements allowed our experience, Dublin's experience in a way, to be shared as a case study in interfaith cooperation.
I mean, I think this is a hugely valuable thing that is naturally a necessity for central governments throughout Europe and in Ireland itself to be interested in, particularly as things are, generally speaking, replete with more issues that would not have been there some 10, 15 years ago, such as migrant issues, such as refugee issues, such as the increasing secularism and the idea of multiculturalism that may not have dominated in a country like Ireland some years back. So do you feel that governments should be much more interested in the whole thing?
Well, this is something we felt from day one since we started working in this field, since we created the network. I suppose over the years we engaged in various policy meetings, either with the government or government bodies such as Department of Education, Department of Health, the police force, and Garda Síochána, exploring ways or initiatives on how better to integrate our I suppose newly found diversity and ensure some sort of social cohesion is happening. We're also we don't have all the answers, but because we collaborate with other cities who've been there before, we're trying to learn as well. Cities such as Edinburgh, Amsterdam, Brussels, Barcelona, who've been dealing with these issues much longer than we have. Of course, there are different contexts, but essentially the issues are the same around migrant integration, around ensuring social cohesion.
And I also think that Dublin City itself, as a city council, as I call it, see the great value of that in the sense that a charter was given to the Dublin City Interfaith Forum.
Yes, we mentioned that at the start of our discussion, and we're hoping to mark this 10th anniversary around December, when I think it was 16th of December, when 2016, when we launched at the Mansion House, where the both residence and office of the Lord Mayor of Dublin is, which in a way underlines our connection with the city structures, because like many interfaith organizations and civic networks, DCIF operates in a complex and evolving environment. So,
yeah, and then of course one of the great sponsors of the DCIF would be the Columbans, who not only sponsor us in various ways, but also have coordinated events that kind of bring us together in the spirit of St. Columbanus. Those of the viewers who don't know who St. Columbanus is, well, the great source of all knowledge is Google, I suppose. And to see that there was a kind of missionary endeavor that went from Ireland and to France and other places. And there's a kind of pilgrimage journey that he did, St. Columbanus that is, throughout Ireland. And there's a forthcoming event. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, and thank you for bringing this up. So, I mean, this is a more recent development I suppose, a broad range of programs and activities. The second annual Interfaith Pilgrimage is taking place next Saturday on the 25th of July. And as you mentioned, we will be walking for a much shorter section of the Turris Columbanus route, where Saint Columban, who started around the 6th century, to walk from Carlo to Bobbio in Italy. So he would have walked through from Carlo through Cavan. Last year we had a short walk around the sacred sites of Ireland, the Hill of Tara, Trim, Beckham Abbey. This year we'll be walking along the border between Monaghan and Fermanagh, with visiting churches, historic points, learn a bit about the history, more recent history, and legacy, and some reconciliation. So everyone is welcome to join us. It's free. The details are on Eventbrite Annual Interfaith Pilgrimage 2026. Feel free to register and attend.
Wonderful. I mean, an event like that epitomizes the heart, I suppose, of the Dublin City Interfaith Forum, from the point of view that it doesn't matter what religion you are, it doesn't matter whether you're short or tall or whatever it is, or what age you are for that matter, that there is a kind of cohesive fraternity and sorority, if you like, that goes with this, whereby when we meet, it really goes against a typical kind of idea about religions and the sectarianism within them, to say, well, let's put that aside. Actually, we have common ground. The common ground is our basic humanity. And within that basic humanity, a drive toward perfection. And so we all have a common goal. And we express it in different ways, no doubt. But many events, I think the tree planting event is another thing which takes place annually, which is part of the Jewish tradition as well. And it is events like this, I suppose, that really express the significance and importance. Other events, of course, and programs and workshops and what have you, emphasize human rights, interculturalism, dialogue, of course, we mentioned, religious integration, social cohesion. All of these are so vital. And I think that's what makes Dublin City Interfaith Forum absolutely vital, and the approach unique as well, even though, as you say, we are learning. We mentioned some various obstacles, though, and the key one, of course, would be financial. And with so many disbursements on other projects and so on and so forth that government departments have, for example, it seems that organizations so vitally important like this always seem to struggle a little bit in terms of finance. But I think there's a facility on your website, isn't it, that is able to, if people wish to, seeing the huge importance of this, wish to contribute. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah. Again, thank you for bringing this this issue that's been with us since the start of the forum. Like I mentioned, we do operate in a complex and evolving environment, and one of the main challenges is ensuring consistent funding. Hence, the need for diversification of sources of funding. Donations are also is one of these sources, and donations can be made practically by everybody. All you have to do is log on to our website www.dcif.ie, and there's a facility. There is on the homepage that donation can be made with the click of a button. We're very grateful for all the support that we've been receiving over the years, and we try to honor our supporters through the work and the I suppose the long-lasting impact, I guess, our work makes at both local and national level.
I might even go as far as to say that this organization, because it's not just confined to Dublin, but it's the whole of Ireland, and also Europe is there, and all of those connections, that it is a significant interfaith movement, and that it is, in fact, so significant and so important in the world we live today. The conventional idea about religions, and it may be one reason why there's a decline in interest in religions, is that historically religions have not been the best example of harmony and peace. And so it's a new era, and I suppose it is bringing all these strands together in one place to show this commonality of purpose and this spirit of oneness, which is really very different from the antagonistic separatism that we could find in the world today. which has lingered in the past and probably will be there in the future as well. But at least this is a movement more significant probably than something like United Nations and what have you. That would be my personal comment, but we're going to wind the thing up a little bit, and I wonder, is there something that we haven't covered that you'd like to highlight specifically, and that you'd like to comment on or mention?
No, I think you made a very good point. So, I mean, in terms of how DCIF is positioning itself in society, but I would add here that DCIF is as a civic actor is rooting itself in principles of human rights, equality, and respect for diversity. We're not a purely theological forum, and that needs to be understood there. We operate as a platform for building relationships and for contributing to social cohesion in our societies. And how do we do that? We do that by creating these spaces where communities from different diverse backgrounds come together around the values that we all share, like dignity, inclusion, respect. And this is not just an abstract idea. It's a lived experience through dialogue, joint actions, like we talked about this interfaith pilgrimage and other initiatives. And the other example of our public involvement is the participation in public commemorations and solidarity events, where we come together to respond to issues such as racism, inequality, community tension. So all these activities show our unity and expressions of solidarity, really.
That's wonderful. And I think the phrase that was most outstanding for me that you mentioned was building relationships. And I think maybe that's really what it's very largely all about.
Yes, relationships and trust among
And yeah,
communities.
very wonderful.
Absolutely.
Adrian, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And thank you very much for sharing with us, because many people have no idea really about the important work that the DCIF are doing. And I have to thank you personally for your tremendous work, involvement, enthusiasm, and energy that you put into this. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Swami. Thank you for having me here. And thank you also for being one of the drivers behind the Interfaith Forum. You've been there, a solid supporter over the years. So your contribution is hugely appreciated. So thank you.
Namaste. Right.